Okay, sorry, I did get carried away a bit. Let's take it from the beginning, shall we?
Hello? Okay, that's everything.
So, the initial plan was to travel for around 300 kilometers to this very old citadel, take one photo of it either at sunrise or sunset, and then get back home. That's not what happened though. In the moment I forgot that those 300 kilometers would mean another 300 back home, and due to the weather and my poor time management and planning, I missed both the sunrise and the sunset. So I needed to go there twice, which translates to 1200 kilometers traveled, which I didn't really mind because first of all, I like driving, so I don't mind that in general, but besides that, the roads there are so beautiful and the landscapes are just superb, so I enjoyed every second of it, and I think I would strongly recommend it. If it's something you want to photograph or visit, you don't really have to like photography for this. If there's something you really want to visit and it's kind of far away and you're considering, is this really worth it or not? I think it is, because things that are close to you don't have the same value. For you at least, if you travel all this way to get to one place, it will mean a lot more to you, I guarantee you that. So the first stop was Constanta, which is a port city at the Black Sea. It's a very beautiful city. I would recommend you visiting it, especially the old town, and the parts filled with history and tradition are quite special. But what I managed to do in these parts is take quite a few photos, and not just that, but I made a new preset, which for those of you who like the film look or just more of a retro look of photography, and also are familiar with Fujifilm cameras, you might really recognize, because I was heavily inspired by Fujifilm's Eterna bleach bypass. So you can see these have a desaturated and contrasty look. My preset is not identical to Eterna bleach bypass, but it's pretty strong. It's pretty similar, and I think the original one from Fujifilm is even more strong with more contrast, but I preferred a more toned down version of it. And as you can see, this works very well with street photography and seascapes and everything in between, really. Then from Constanza to the citadel, it's about 1 hour of a drive time, and this is the most beautiful part of the road, and the landscape is just superb. Also, you will find, if you decide to visit, you will find lots of wind turbines and sheep all along the way, which I didn't mind at all. Then when you get really close to the citadel, right next to it, it's a big lake. It's very vast. It's called the Razelm Lake, and this one is interesting. I've seen photos of it before, and when I got there, it really didn't look like what I saw in the photos. And same goes for me, because this is actually a pretty great example that I have to give you. This photograph I managed to do with a 1 second exposure time and f/16 aperture. I only had an ND32 filter with me, and the sun was already pretty high in the sky, so I couldn't expose it even more. This is all I could do. That's why I closed down the aperture so much. And why I was saying it's a great example is because I have every step of the process and how it looks at different exposures. So this is how it looks at 1 second with some editing, not a whole lot. It's just I warmed it a bit and cleaned up the water just a bit. But this is how it looks at half a second. Obviously it's a lot more blue because I did warm up the other one. And this is how it looks in real life at a very high exposure time, a very brief one I should say. So yeah, not the most impressive thing in the world when you see it at first. Honestly, it looked a bit like a swamp or something. It was a bit dried up and that's a factor, but yeah, definitely not what you will see in photos. This one was so random and accidental. Actually, when I first saw it, I wanted to delete it because it was so moved. But then I started to see potential in this and it became a bit of an abstract photo, and I just like it. In the end, I like it a lot, how simple and minimalist it is, with just white and green, and also the feeling of speed that this photo sends. Because it was such a long exposure, I'd say, for this kind of scenario, it's very moved, but in a good way. It shows speed, it shows motion, which I think worked out great in the end. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is no award-winning photo, but I just like it. It's not that bad. When you will get close to the citadel, you will see it from miles away because it's so high up on that hill, and it's just towering everything else. It's quite a nice view. So this was at pretty early in the morning. It was obviously after sunrise, but there were lots of clouds, so you wouldn't really see the sun itself. It just looked cloudy and a bit moody, but I just liked this this framing and this point of view of the citadel. This one is probably the most popular angle of this fortress, and you will see it from this angle a lot on the internet and everywhere. That doesn't mean it's any less good looking. It's probably one of the best angles of the citadel indeed. It's just that I don't think it's not special in any way. It's just a nice photo, I would say, a nice photo of the citadel, but yeah. So as you can see, we're getting closer and closer to it, and here I tried another portrait framing of the citadel, but I believe I should start showing you the drone footage that I got the second trip, because on the first one it was just not possible. Okay, so first I should show you how it looked the first time, and I was like, nope, not flying the drone. So yeah, this is how it was the first time, and I was unable to fly any kind of drone. The second time though, the weather was so much calmer and there was almost no wind. There were perfect conditions to fly a drone. So if you didn't see my last video, here's another chance for you to see it. So I hope you liked that short sequence, if you didn't see it before. If you have any kind of suggestions or critics, I'm very open to them, so please write them down in the comments. Otherwise, I have a few photos from the drone as well to show you. This one, I really like how the sun at sunset seems to just move in and cover all the hills in a warm blanket of light. I don't want to get too poetic about it, but yeah, this is just what it's transmitting to me. This one is another photo from further back, and I took this one because I liked those curves in the hill that are made. I don't even know how they are made, but they are there. And it's just to give you a sense of scale of the place, because it's quite vast. It's quite something. Oh, and also, if I didn't mention by now, the Mavic Air 2 has 48 megapixels of resolution, and that will be more than plenty for any kind of photo you will ever take, as you can see in this example. So besides the middle couple on the mountain, as in the first photo, I just on the left side, I just love how the sun sweeps in and how it looks. There's a bit of a fun fact about this photo. It's one of my favorites, actually, from the drone, at least from that trip. But I didn't realize the drone decided to switch to the 12 megapixels mode and didn't take a 48 megapixel photo, but rather a 12 one, and it looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as you don't really zoom in and don't crop in. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily print it on a building or something. I also made a few panoramas, and this is one I am quite happy with. It's getting dark, as you can see already, but precisely because of that, the colors are so nice across the sky. Here's another shot of how dark it was getting, and the show of light that you could see in the distance. So, as you can see, here we were moving from sunset to blue hour already. It was getting really dark, and these are the photos I am the happiest with. These were taken actually on my first trip, not on the second. On the second, there were no clouds, there was no wind. It was perfect weather for sitting around there and to film with your drone. But as far as photography goes, the first trip was a lot better. It looked a lot more dramatic, and yeah, it just goes to show you bad weather is perfect weather for photography. Also, you can see the settings on the bottom left side. I put them there so you can see how I achieved these images, but also I was trying to test the camera's capabilities, because I forgot in the moment that I even have a tripod with me. So these were all handheld. I only rediscovered that fact later on. So yeah, I was trying to juggle with the triangle of exposure, the aperture, the f-stop, and the ISO, because it was obviously getting dark, but I wanted to keep that aperture as close as possible, meaning as close to 8 as possible, because I wanted the rocks to be sharp. I wanted everything to be sharp in the image. For this one, I was actually inspired by a very good landscape photographer from Denmark. I put his details in the description below if you want to check him out. I believe his stuff is just amazing. This was probably one of the last photos I took there, and I just loved the colors in the sky. They were brilliant, and the entire scene just gives me a Mordor vibe from Lord of the Rings, if you've seen it. And to wrap it off, this was the very last photo I took. It was actually when I was headed back to the car, putting everything back together, packing my camera, and I happened to notice this moon, which was right above the road on the hill, and it looked like the road was leading to the moon. And I just had to get my camera back out and take a photo of it. and I'm pretty happy with the results. This trip was quite a challenge, and it was quite a test on my camera as well, the Canon 6D Mark II. In particular, its low light capabilities, which I gotta say, they did not disappoint. I mean, I'm fairly happy with the results, and I couldn't have wished for more. So this is it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed both the photos and the drone footage of this place. I really recommend you visiting it if you can. It won't disappoint. It's just beautiful. Until next time, please do like, subscribe, comment on all that. It really helps. It really helps to also know if you guys are interested in these kind of photography trips and the story behind them. So yeah, that would be really appreciated. See ya.